Welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way so you don't have to. Join our host, Layci Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. On this podcast, we invite you to step into the confessional and get real with the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of leadership. Let's get to it.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I'm your host, and let us never forget, former terrible leader, Layci Nelson. I am thrilled to welcome Andy Semotiuk to the show today. He is a U.S. and Canadian immigration attorney, an author of 4 books, and he also writes for Forbes. You're a busy man right now, aren't you, Andy? Welcome to the show.
Very busy, especially with what's going on in the United States and in Canada.
Absolutely. I have so many questions for you as just a layperson who is watching all of this unfold and go, I don't even begin to understand the complexities of it. What are your FAQs right now? What are people asking you? What are your days filled with currently?
Well, there's a lot of people who want to go up to Canada because they're not happy with what's going on in the U.S., but there are also a lot of Canadians that want to go down to the United States largely because they want to make a lot of money and the business world is more attractive for them down there. I just wrote an article today on Forbes related to the deportation efforts that are taking place in the United States. And it's a huge issue. There are huge aspects to it. So, for example, they're deporting 11 million so-called undocumented immigrants, that is to say, people who came without papers or permission to come to the United States or overstayed. They're also deporting people who came recently, about 935,000, I believe it is, who came under the new apps that the Biden administration introduced to allow people to come to the United States. They're deporting people who are on what are called temporary protective status on that program, people from Haiti, Venezuela, Ukraine. There are people being deported from or who are on what's called humanitarian parole. That is to say, people who were allowed into the country given that they were fleeing from somewhere else, just given permission to be in the country for a starter. These programs are all being canceled and these people are being deported. And in addition to that, there are cancellations of student visas. For example, South Sudan appears to be a problem country for the United States, and 300 students from South Sudan have had their visas canceled. There is a Turkish woman who has had her visa canceled because evidently she was at a pro-Palestinian protest. There are the head of the Columbia students' protest has had his visa canceled, and these are 2 student visas, but these are like the Turkish woman is a PhD student studying in the United States, and the other guy's from Columbia and doing some, I don't know, some advanced studies. There's an announcement to the effect that the immigration authorities will be reviewing the social media activities of people, students in the United States in particular, with a view to see if they have made any anti-Semitic comments on their social media outlets. And if so, that will result in removal. So there are all these things taking place. What can I say? There's a lot.
There's a lot going on. Yes.
Yeah.
In particular, in the Forbes article you just wrote, how are you guiding people, or I guess informing maybe is a more appropriate word, but what does it look like in your world, in your life? What does it mean for you right now to have this awareness? And how are people accessing what you offer? What are you doing for people in these situations that are probably really scary if you thought you were here legally? If you were here legally, there was no thinking about it. You were here legally, and then it's revoked. I can only imagine how unsettling that would be.
There isn't very much that I can do. I mean, there are ways that you can move from one program to another. So, for example, make an asylum claim if you're in a temporary status like a humanitarian parole, or if there's a family member that might be able to sponsor you, or if you get married and the spouse might sponsor you, or there may be ways that an employer may be able to open up a door for you to be able to stay, or there may be a way to discover a citizenship that you didn't know about that would make it possible for you to stay. These are Hail Marys. There's not much, like the blunt force of deportation for the most part is going forward. I'll give you a typical example.
Yeah.
There are many people in the US who are about to be deported, so they want to come to Canada. Now, you would think that Canada could somehow accommodate this, but the problem is if you're an asylum claimant, there's this so-called safe third country agreement, which blocks someone who comes to Canada saying, I want to claim asylum in Canada, because the United States is regarded as a safe third-party country, and therefore you are supposed to make your claim inside the United States. So you're turned away at the border. If you come illegally across the border, you'll be arrested and taken back to the border, U.S. border, and turned back to the U.S. authorities. If you are in non-immigrant status, any kind of non-immigrant status, so for example, all the ones that I've listed, let's say you're a student, let's say you're a worker, let's say you're on humanitarian parole, let's say you're on temporary protective status, or any of these categories. Since you're a non-immigrant in the United States and you want to come to Canada, almost certainly you will need a visa to come to Canada. So what kind of visa can you apply for? A visitor's visa would be the most common answer. But to get a visitor's visa, you have to be able to show that you're going to leave the country at the end of your period of authorized stay. But since you are not really leaving the United States to come back, and you certainly don't want to go back to your country of origin because there's a war on, or you're afraid of being persecuted, any non-immigrant status of that nature in the United States pretty much makes it impossible for you to enter Canada. The only way you could apply to come to Canada is if you applied for permanent status, because then you don't have to show that at the end of your period of authorized stay, you're going to leave. You can say, I want to stay permanently. An example would be, let's say I marry an American girl.
Yes.
Not an American girl, but a girl who's in America in one of these non-immigrant statuses. So I can sponsor her to come to Canada, and she can come because she's applying to stay permanently.
Right.
So those are some examples of what's going on at the border and what we're dealing with. I'll just share a few other things.
Yeah.
That's America, let's say, and Canada as a neighbor. But there's a lot going on around the world that is causing a lot of heartache. So number one, there's a war in Ukraine. Like 6 million Ukrainians that left Ukraine looking for a place to stay. And of those, 300,000 ended up in the United States, roughly. There's Gaza and what's going on in Gaza, the war there. A lot of people want to leave, but they can't because they can't get visas to come or whatever. But that's causing a lot of turmoil, a lot of discussion going on. 50,000 people dead in Gaza. 50,000. It's a lot.
Yes.
The war in Ukraine, incidentally, has killed probably over 900,000 Russian soldiers and probably about 300,000 Ukrainian soldiers, or maybe more. So you got
so much
like
human loss.
Big losses.
Yes.
Now, on top of that, in the world today, there are over 100 million people who have been uprooted and do not have a place to live. 100 million. And they're around, they're floating around. There are 50 million, roughly 50 million refugees in the world who are sitting around in refugee camps. So, for example, there's refugee camps with over 1 million people living in the refugee camp.
That's a big city. That's
Yeah,
sorry, I can't even fathom how large that must be.
me neither. That's like,
Continue, please.
I have a
Yeah.
friend who's a lawyer here in Canada who came from one of those refugee camps. He lived there for 12 years and somehow managed to come to Canada, study
Wow.
law, and become a lawyer. And today he's practicing asylum law here in Canada, in Toronto. He's Ethiopian, and he's quite an amazing person. So these are all, there's people from the African continent who desperately want to come up to Europe, to the European continent, to escape poverty and climate change and violence and war and everything like that. So there's this huge cocktail of trouble all over the world that's looking for some relief. And,
Yes.
they're looking to America, Canada, Australia,
Mm-hmm.
Argentina
Mm-hmm.
for potential places to settle and make a life.
Yeah.
So that's all in the mix.
Man, Andy, what do we do as citizens who our hearts are breaking for eh, all of this extreme amount of trauma and loss,
Yeah.
and we want to be we want to offer some sort of relief, and we don't even know where to start. What recommendation do you have for a citizen in Canada or in the United States that we just feel absolutely powerless watching all of this? Is there any
Yeah.
practical advice you have for us?
There are things that can be done. It's not a hopeless situation, but you need rational, intelligent leaders. You
Mm-hmm.
can't have people who are unpredictable, who are not following the rules, who believe that they been elected and therefore they can do whatever they want, and everybody just shut up and follow. Right? Yeah. So, well, for example, let's take the 11 million undocumented. First of all, it's crazy to think you can deport 11 million
11 million
undocumented
people. Yes.
immigrants. Not only is it like, apart from the feasibility, there's economic reasons why that's ridiculous. And there's even moral reasons why that's ridiculous. And just to touch on a few, of the 11 million people in the United States, and it's probably more, it could be up to 20 million. There's a small community of people who deserve to be kicked out. They're criminals, murderers, rapists, terrible people. And
Yes.
they should be kicked out, and they are being kicked out. Bravo, everybody. I don't think
Yes.
anybody would say, wait a minute, don't deport these people.
I have
No.
not met anyone who has said that.
No, me neither. In terms of numbers, that may be, I don't know, I think it's less than 2 million of all those people who
Right.
are in that category.
In that category, yeah.
And it's good that, whatever the administration is doing to get these people out, great. But even there's a procedure that you can follow. You can't show up at someone, in the middle of the night in just ordinary clothing with a hoodie and arrest them and take them in a van. Like, there are procedures that normally you would take. Even a criminal,
Right.
you
There's
have
a
to deal with
process
a person.
that's transparent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But those people, okay, out they go, happy to have them go,
Mm-hmm.
goodbye. Now, what about the rest? So let's say there's 2 million of those. These are people who crossed the border illegally, crossed the Rio Grande. They shot people somewhere in one city or another on a subway or whatever it is, raped women in the dark or whatever. Out.
Yeah, bye. Gone.
So 9 million left. Now, what do you do with these 9 million? So if you look at that population, 2/3 of that population has been in the United States for over 10 years. 10 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah. Now, they came improperly. There's no doubt about it. They came improperly. And that's that's the thing that sticks in the throat, I guess, for some
Right.
people. How
Right.
can you be here if you... But
You're a
after
criminal.
10
You came
years,
illegally. You count as a criminal, right? Yep.
but they're not criminals. To come, let's say you come to the United States as a student and you overstay. Now you're in this category. You're not a criminal. It's a civil wrong, but you're not a criminal. You can't
Can
call
you
them a
expand
criminal.
on that? I think
Yeah.
people do not understand the difference between criminal and civil
Okay.
and within our own laws. How does that work?
Sure. Okay. I don't know about you, but I drive fast. In fact, most of
Hmm.
the time I'm speeding. If I ever
Same.
get caught, I know I'm guilty. I deserve it because I'm going everywhere above the speed limit. That's an offense, but it's not a criminal offense. A criminal offense is a serious offense. It's something like killing someone or hurting someone or, stealing money or breaking into someone's home. That's a criminal offense.
Hmm.
But these people who came by the law that's on the books, they did not commit a criminal offense. Yes, they came improperly, even illegally to the United States, but they're not criminals.
Hmm.
However,
By our own definition.
by our own definition,
Yep.
but the people who are doing the deporting are saying we're getting rid of all criminals,
Right.
meaning all 11 million are criminals. Well, okay, this is a technical difference, I suppose. But, they say, for example, it's a mere technicality. But,
Mm.
the presumption of innocence is a mere technicality, but it's not a mere technicality. It's fundamental. The
Hmm.
law
Hmm.
and how you deal with people is not a technicality. It's a
Right.
fundamental process. But anyway, okay, so these people, all right, they came illegally. You have to deal with that fact in some way. You got to punish them because they came illegally. Now, one punishment is get them on a plane and kick them out. And don't
Hmm.
bother to give them a hearing. Just get them on the plane and out, which is what they're trying to do. They're saying it's an emergency. The Enemy Alien Act from 1700s justifies because it's an emergency. We're going to put them on a plane out.
Yep.
That's the way they're
No
doing
due
it.
process. You don't get
No,
any. You're not a citizen.
right,
Bye.
right.
Yep.
Now, if you're in the United States, even if you commit a wrong, you're entitled to due process. A lawyer, a hearing, a judge deciding you got to go. You have certain rights to present your case and so on.
And that
Imagine
is
9 million people.
constitutional.
Yeah. Yeah. Due process. Yeah. Imagine 9 million people now need due process. You got to schedule the judge, the lawyer, the person concerned, the prosecutor, all for a
Hmm.
day when you have a hearing on this person's case and decide, yes,
Hmm.
this person should be. That's a lot of processing. Like it's
Oh,
impossible. It's a nightmare.
right.
It's a nightmare.
Right.
And so what they're doing is they're just arresting these people. One of
Yeah.
the challenges is, let's say you're from Venezuela. So we want to send you back to Venezuela. The question is, will the Venezuela government receive
Take
you,
you.
accept you? Not every country is willing to accept them. So
Right.
if you're from Cuba, maybe they're not going to allow you to send them back to Cuba. So what do? You arrest the guy. He's here illegally, but you can't send him back. What are you going to
Right.
do with him? Throw him in jail. What jail? Jails can't accommodate all these people. So they're building special holding places, like on force bases
Yeah.
and places in Arizona and I think Texas and California, where these people are going to be held. So they're going to have sort of like internment camps to
Right.
hold these people because they can't
That
be
no one will
deported.
take. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can't be here. So now what we're going to have is this. Now, I'm sorry, I'm spending a lot of time talking about the problem, but I'll give you some solutions in a minute as well.
Okay. Thank
So,
you. But this is
yeah.
fascinating, especially that we work with a lot of people in agriculture and manufacturing, and we're talking about a lot of very real people with real
Yeah.
faces and their families. And if they're not directly impacted, they're related to someone who is or is going
Oh,
to
yeah.
be. So this
Yeah.
is
Yeah. So,
definitely relevant.
so you pull these people out of the economy and put them
Hmm.
in a holding cell where they're not producing anything. So before they're making money and feeding us and clothing us and so on.
Right.
And
And
now
paying
they're sitting
taxes.
and we're, and,
Yeah.
yeah. And now we're paying for them to sit in a jail while we figure out what to do with these people, right? Plus the hatred, the emotional upheaval, the sense of, confusion and everything that goes with everything. So this is where we're at. How do you solve this problem? Number one, I say like this. If you've been here 10 years, that's good enough for me, Charlie. 10 years, there's got to be a way for you If you've been a good boy otherwise than coming into the country, there's got to be a way for you to be able to stay if you'll work and earn the right to stay permanently. How do you earn the right to stay permanently? Number one, no criminal record. Number two, pay your taxes. Number three, a fine, possibly, I don't know what, $1,000, $5,000 that you have to pay off. Number four, community service, 500 hours of community service, supervised community service. You are going to go to hospitals and help people who are sick. You are going to go to nursing homes and help people who are old with their needs. You are going to go around and paint up all this graffiti that's out there with white paint to make this place look nicer. You're going to go out into our parks and clean up the parks and the various places where people go with picnics to make it nice and clean. You're going to clean up all the highways and so on. And for 500 hours, they work. But by doing so, they're paying off the wrong that they committed by coming. Now, the argument will be, well, yeah, but this person came illegally, and there are other people who applied legally, and they were not given the priority because this person came. That's probably true. But those people who applied legally by now, 10 years later,
10 years,
are probably already in the country. So they're both in the country. The illegal and the legal are both in the country. But the illegal one had the ability to be in the country for 5, 6, 7 years while the other one was still applying. So it's a delay. But both are in the country. So in my view, the way you deal with that is you say, okay, you can get a green card and you can become a citizen earning your way along, but it's going to take you longer than someone who just came, the regular way. But at least you're both in the country and you're both contributing to the country. So that's the way I would deal with the issue of 11 million illegal immigrants. Now, does that block or does that set a precedent for people now somewhere outside the U.S. who wants to come and come in illegally? That they'll say, well, if you come, you'll get, eventually they'll let you stay. There's got to be some enforcement at the border. The Republicans are right about that. It's not a sieve. It's a place where you have to account for. Now, the way you have to deal with those people is the countries they came from. If there's escaping violence, gangsters, poverty, no future, no education, we have to help those countries economically build up, so that there is a reason to be there. People don't leave a country for just esoteric reasons. They leave for good reasons.
Yeah, it is
war, violence,
very terrifying to think of leaving and starting over somewhere in a nation where I didn't understand it and I didn't speak the language and I was far away from all of my family that didn't make the trek with me.
We have to help those countries. I'm thinking of South American countries in particular, Latin American countries, stabilize and lead a good life of some kind. Make it a good life, which means economic assistance and intelligent development programs for places like that. The breeding grounds for people who are coming up this way. And we have to be generous, not only in South America, but elsewhere as well, to these people who have no place and are in a refugee camp, like hopeless.
Right.
So that's part of the solution. And I would also say, I see it this way. You live in America. If you have a family member, uncle, aunt, brother, sister, whoever it is, and you want to sponsor them to come to the United States, and you're financially willing to take responsibility for their well-being for a period of time, 3 years, let's say, you can file an application to sponsor them, and they can come, provided they're not criminals, and they're not sick. They can come based on your sponsorship. I think that's a beautiful way to run immigrant program. My family, for example, my Aunt Helen, my Uncle Emil, and so on, came to the United States as refugees after World War II. they were sponsored and they had to work to pay off their sponsorship. And they did.
Mm-hmm.
And they became wealthy and they died wealthy and happy in the
Yeah.
United States, I guess.
The American dream.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
If let's say you're a lawyer and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lawyer overseas who wants to come and you feel an affinity because you're a lawyer, you can sponsor that person. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
farmer, there's a farmer, you can sponsor that person. If you're a Mennonite and there's a Mennonite who wants to come, you can sponsor that person.
Yeah.
If you're a Mormon or if you're Jewish and there's a Jewish person
Mm-hmm.
overseas who wants to come, you can sponsor them. Same if you're Muslim. I believe that's the way that you have to run the immigration system by and large. I think you got to look at permanent sponsorships, not just a work, not just a
Mm-hmm.
temporary, but the capacity to sponsor, like the bride, the mail order bride that comes in from overseas kind of a scenario.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's terrible. But on the other hand, it's actually the idea of bringing someone in and sponsoring them to stay permanently.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way we're going to have to deal with immigration in the future. Then, sorry, I'm kind of talking endlessly, but let me finish with this one
Yes,
thought.
finish this thought. And then I'm going to invite you into the confessional. But to listen to someone who has the knowledge and the expertise and the personal experience that you have speak about this, and obviously a huge heart. And it just comes through that you care so much about the real human lives that are caught up in the politics of all of our governments, right? There's the human lives that are caught up in it and affected by it, and trying to look for solutions that are practical. It's very refreshing to hear different ideas. So I invite your thoughts. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't know where I wanted to go with you, so I'll just say these problems are solvable to some extent, but we also have to recognize this fact. America cannot be the solution for every displaced person in the world.
Yeah.
Even people who are fleeing terrible situations. There's a limit on what America can do. Same for Canada, same for other countries.
Right.
And so it's not possible for us to have an open society that just accepts anybody who wants to come to America. We have to have a Congress that sets how many people can come per year and what type of people and from what countries. That's just that's America, Canada, no matter where. And the sad reality is there will be many people, who will just not be able to come here. And so we have to do our best to figure out solutions overseas as well, helping
to help
overseas.
Those that can't make it. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your thoughts, your insight, your decades of experience. And it definitely gave me as a citizen a lot to think about. We always say, what's the pathway forward? And as we're hanging out with people and having, over drinks, and these are the topics that come up, and to have some informed thoughts and different ways to look at things and a different perspective to bring to the table and just bring into the American lexicon of the way we talk about it is extremely helpful to hear varied perspectives. So thank you for sharing today, all of that with us. And now we're going to switch it up, Andy, and we're going to invite you into the confessional of the Confessions of a Terrible Leader to share a story from your experience. I'm sure you've had plenty of opportunities to make some pretty great mistakes in your journey. What would you like to share with us today as your mistake, and how does that impact, or misstep, or learning opportunity, whatever you want to call it, how does that shape the way that you lead today?
Okay, I'd love to, pick up something from immigration, but I don't have something meaningful enough to share in that area, other than this story, which is related to immigration, but is not right on theme. So the story is, I was practicing law in this many years ago in Alberta, Canada, and a guy came to my office. He says, "Hi, I want to introduce myself. I'm Vladimir Talenchuk, and I'm a famous airplane designer." I said, oh, well, that's very nice to meet you. Thank you. And I have all kinds of quacks and weirdos that come to see me all the time. So I don't just, stand up and salute
You don't
because
take
you're
it
an
on
airplane
face
designer.
value. Yeah.
Yeah. So I figure, okay, so I meet this guy and I figure, okay, I'm going to look this guy up, Now, back then, there was no computer to look up, online. So I had to go to the library, went to the library. He's got several designs in Jane's, the leading authoritative book. He's truly a world-class airplane designer
Yeah.
in the field of what's called ultra airplanes. These are ultra light airplanes.
Okay.
Airplanes below a certain threshold, but still airplanes. So they're not like passenger airplanes or, things that can carry huge weight or anything, but they're just a kind of a subset, sort of hang gliders, but more than a
Mm-hmm.
glider, an airplane. So I started talking with him. Now, I used to work at the UN as a journalist many years ago, and I wrote stories about immigration, but I got to know people at the UN. And I'm here in Edmonton at this time talking to this airplane designer, and he says, well, I can build an airplane that's going to be fantastic. We can sell it. It'll be the best in the market. I said, okay, let's form a company. Let's have you design this airplane. I've got some connections. Maybe we can make something out of this. Okay, so we did. So we formed a company, went around raising capital to build this airplane. And sure enough, he built an airplane, a model, like the model for building
Yeah. Yep.
many airplanes.
The prototype.
And
Yes.
prototype, yeah. And we had a pilot flying around doing circles in the air and all this kind of stuff with this prototype. It was fantastic. So we think, well, now what are we going to do now? Where are we going to produce this thing? And I talked to some people in New York from my UN days. They say, hey, talk to the Chinese. They're interested. So I arranged a meeting. Sure enough, they want us to meet. We flew to New York to meet these Chinese people, and we had a sit down. Now, this guy, I don't know, this story might be a little long, but I'll try to make it as short as possible.
I got to find out what happened.
This designer was a MiG pilot from Poland. He used to fly MiG jet airplane, like war airplanes. And he had a Polish passport. And so now these Chinese guys invite us to go meet him in New York. So I said, let's go. He says, yeah, let's go. Go to the airport. Hey, what kind of passport you got? Polish. You can't go. You need a visa. Oh, my gosh. Andy, go by yourself. Talk to these people. I go by myself. These Chinese guys say, this is great. Let's do it. So we fly to China and we have all kinds of discussion. And we're talking to this huge company, 10,000 engineers, Changfen Industry Corp in Beijing, China, talking about building these airplanes in a factory in China. Now, when we started with this guy, Vladimir, I says to him, Vladimir, you're from Poland. Are you ready to go to China? If they say, yeah, let's build a factory. It's a communist country. You're from a communist. No problem. I'll do it. Are you sure? Yes, I will, for sure. So we fly to China, and now we're in discussions with these engineers. Where can we build it? How much, etc. Many meetings later, we reach an agreement. They have a factory. They have an airport. It's on the outskirts of Beijing. We're going to build airplanes. I think it was 750 airplanes. And the cost of the airplane, it was very cheap. It's something like 7,500 US per airplane.
My gosh, yeah.
It was fantastic. They flew to Canada to see the prototype, and our pilot was flying around in circles. They're all watching there, like it was unbelievable. All good. Everything's signed. Everything's ready. We're ready to go. My designer dies of a heart attack.
Oh,
Heart
no.
attack. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
And
tragic in so many ways.
And now I'm left to pick up the pieces. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Now, because it was unique, the guy was a unique designer. There weren't that many. There was one guy who was in California. He was a weirdo. He lived in the desert, and he was an airplane designer, also in Jane's. So I contacted him. He flew up. He was checking the airplane. But when it came push to shove, no go. So we're stuck. No designer, therefore no. Like we have a prototype. It's not going to go. It's not
Who's
going
going
to
to
go
make it?
without.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I had to talk to the Chinese and bring them down, saying, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. The guy's died. We can't pull it together. I had to talk to my friends in New York who set up all these meetings and
Yeah.
also calm them down. I had to talk to the investors in the company who built the airplane and tell them we're going to lose all our money. And a freak thing happened, which is somehow a tornado happened and it hit the airplane, destroyed the prototype, same time, roughly. We kept the airplane on a farm, and in Alberta, I mean, the chances of having a tornado come along, it was actually in Saskatchewan is where we had that plane.
Oh
But
my
the chances
gosh.
of it, so it
Yeah.
got hit, destroyed, no airplane, no nothing. No China. They have a factory that they have to now do something with. All these guys who
Oh,
were
wow.
preparing to build airplanes. Yeah. So
Wow.
I had
What did
to,
you learn?
I learned you're going to go through life. And the reality is it's impossible to go through life without hurting people.
Mm,
Not because you want to. I hope you don't want to. But just because you're doing things and life requires commitments and, money and things.
yeah.
And not everything works. And when it
Yeah.
doesn't work, it hurts. People are
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
And all you can do is minimize the hurt in situations like the pain and the hurt and comfort
Hmm.
those who are hurting and do what you can to make the best of a bad situation and move on. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Every business owner listening to you right now is nodding in agreement. And
I'm sure they
we
have
know.
even worse things than that what I did there, but that's
Man.
my
Well,
that's my
thank
lesson.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Andy, you've been an amazing guest. What is the best way for people? We'll drop every link you give us in
Sure.
the show notes, but what is the one best way to connect with you if there's a listener that really is highly engaged and wants to reach out? What's the best way to do it?
I work for Pace Law Firm, PACE in Toronto. Just look up pacelawfirm.com and you can reach me that way.
Amazing. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for your stories, your depth of knowledge. It's really been a pleasure. So
It's been a pleasure,
appreciate it.
Layci, to be with you and your crew. And I want to
Yes.
thank everybody for having me on your program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, until next time, listeners, you know the drill. Go manage like a leader.
Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. If you're feeling brave and have your own terrible leader story that you'd like to share, head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com/podcast to fill out a guest application. We'd love to hear from you. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Layci Nelson and produced and edited by Fixation Point Productions. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is a free leadership resource offered by Transcend Leadership Collective. If you are ready to refuse the limits of average leadership and join the leadership revolution, visit transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our offerings for engaging workshops, strategic planning, and more. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.